If you've recently sat at your kitchen table in the quiet hours of the morning, staring down at your blood glucose monitor and seeing a number like 160, 180, or even over 200, I know how incredibly frustrating that moment can be. You likely felt a wave of exhaustion wash over you. You might have asked yourself, how is this possible? I haven't even eaten breakfast yet. You have likely spent months, perhaps years, doing exactly what you were advised to do. You've thoughtfully removed refined sugars from your pantry. You've passed on the warm dinner rolls, turned down your favorite desserts at family gatherings, and embraced a diet focused on lean proteins and vegetables. You read the labels. You choose the products clearly marked zero sugar and diet. You are putting in the hard work every single day. And yet, the numbers simply refuse to budge. When you put in that much effort and the results don't reflect it, it is natural to feel a quiet, lingering worry. You might start to believe that your body is simply wearing down, or that your metabolism has completely stopped responding. Please listen to me when I say this. Your body is not failing you, and you are not failing your diet. I am Dr. Andrew Morgan. Today, I want to have a calm, thoughtful conversation about something many people, even dedicated healthcare professionals, often overlook. We are going to step away from the usual lectures about counting carbohydrates and portion sizes. Instead, we are going to look at the fascinating, highly sensitive communication system between your brain and your digestive system. We are going to explore why the diabetic-friendly, zero-calorie alternatives you rely on might be the very things keeping your morning blood sugar stubbornly high. Once you understand the biology of how your body interprets sweetness, you will realize that you have a lot more control over your health than you might think. To understand why your fasting numbers remain elevated despite your discipline, we have to look at how human beings are wired. For thousands of years, our bodies evolved in an environment where sweet tastes were rare and highly valuable. In nature, sweetness meant one thing: a dense source of energy and carbohydrates was about to enter the stomach. Fast forward to today. When you wake up and stir a zero-calorie artificial sweetener, like sucralose, aspartame, or erythritol, into your morning coffee, or when you enjoy a sugar-free yogurt for a midday snack, something very specific happens. The moment that intense, synthetic sweetness touches your tongue, your taste buds send an immediate, lightning-fast electrical signal to your brain. Your brain, acting on thousands of years of evolution, registers this extreme sweetness and prepares the body for digestion. It immediately sends a message down to your pancreas. This is a well-documented physiological response known as the cephalic phase insulin release. The word cephalic simply means relating to the head or the brain. Before your coffee even reaches your stomach, your pancreas begins releasing insulin into your bloodstream to prepare for the heavy load of sugar it believes is coming. Your body is functioning perfectly? It is simply anticipating a meal based on the signals it was given. But here is where the confusion begins. Because you consumed an artificial, zero-calorie sweetener, the sugar never actually arrives. There are no carbohydrates entering your digestive tract for that insulin to process. Now, you have a unique situation inside your bloodstream, an influx of insulin that has no incoming food to manage. Because insulin's primary job is to clear glucose out of the blood, this circulating insulin begins sweeping up the normal, baseline blood sugar that is already in your system. This causes your blood sugar to experience a sudden, slight drop. You might not consciously feel this drop at all. You might simply feel a mild wave of afternoon fatigue or a subtle craving. But your brain detects this drop immediately. The brain relies heavily on a steady stream of glucose to function. When it senses your blood sugar dipping, it perceives this as a state of stress. To protect you, the brain triggers the release of cortisol, our primary stress hormone. Cortisol's job is to keep you safe and energized. When it enters your bloodstream in response to this perceived low-sugar state, it travels directly to your liver. Your liver acts as a wonderful, highly efficient storage vault for emergency energy, keeping extra glucose locked away in a form called glycogen. When cortisol reaches the liver, it essentially knocks on the door and says, "We need energy, right now." The liver responds beautifully. It breaks down its stored glycogen and releases a wave of glucose directly into your bloodstream. Think about what has just occurred. You drank a zero-calorie beverage. You didn't consume a single gram of actual sugar. Yet, because the artificial sweetness tricked your brain into releasing insulin and your liver responded to the subsequent drop, your own body manufactured a blood sugar spike. This is why you can follow a strict, low-carbohydrate diet and still watch your glucose monitor read 200 hours later. Your body is doing its best to protect you, but it is reacting to mixed signals. Several recent studies in metabolic health indicate that artificial sweeteners can significantly alter how our bodies handle glucose, even if the sweeteners themselves contain 0 calories. The research suggests that we cannot simply separate the taste of sweetness from our metabolic response. I want to share the story of a patient of mine named Arthur. Arthur is a 72-year-old retired history teacher, an incredibly disciplined man who loved to spend his weekends building model ships with his grandson. When his A1C began to creep up into the pre-diabetic range, Arthur took it very seriously. He immediately stopped drinking his beloved regular iced tea and switched entirely to diet, artificially sweetened tea. He swapped his evening ice cream for sugar-free gelatin. Arthur came into my office a few months later, looking deeply tired. His fasting blood sugar had not gone down. In fact, it had slightly increased. He told me he was experiencing numbness in his toes, a quiet, lingering worry that kept him up at night. He felt like he was losing ground despite fighting so hard. I sat down with Arthur and explained the concept of the Cephalic Phase Insulin Release. I explained that his body was simply confused by the constant stream of artificial sweetness. We didn't add any new medications. Instead, we made a practical, gentle shift. I asked Arthur to transition from his artificially sweetened iced tea to water infused with fresh lemon and mint, and to swap his sugar-free gelatin for a small handful of raw almonds. By removing the synthetic sweetness, we allowed Arthur's brain to relax. We stopped the unnecessary insulin releases, which in turn stopped his liver from dumping emergency sugar into his blood. Within a few weeks, Arthur called my office. He sounded like a different person. His morning fasting numbers had stabilized beautifully, and his energy had returned. He hadn't fought his body. He had simply learned to communicate with it more clearly. Here is a practical action you can implement today. I encourage you to gently audit your pantry. Take a look at the products labeled diet or sugar-free. Notice how often your body is being exposed to intense, calorie-free sweetness throughout the day. Simply bringing awareness to this is the very first step in reclaiming your metabolic balance. However, the liver's response to artificial sweetness is only the first part of the story. While the liver is releasing emergency glucose, something equally important is happening on a microscopic level inside your gut. The artificial ingredients in these zero-sugar foods interact with your digestive system in a way that directly impacts how your cells absorb energy. Most people never realize that the health of the bacteria in their stomach is intimately connected to their insulin resistance. This changes entirely once you understand the mechanics of your microbiome. In the next section, we are going to explore exactly how these modern foods interact with your digestive tract, and why soothing your gut might be the missing key to finally lowering those morning numbers. If we look closely at the journey of a single glucose molecule, the liver releasing emergency sugar into your bloodstream is only the first chapter of the story. The real question, the one that explains why you might be feeling so deeply exhausted in the afternoons, or why you might be experiencing that unsettling tingling in your feet, is why that sugar stays trapped in your blood instead of being used for energy. When you look at your monitor and see a fasting number of 180 or 200, it is easy to feel a sense of blame. But I want to guide you away from frustration and toward understanding. To comprehend why your body is holding on to this sugar, we have to look away from your diet for a moment and zoom in on the microscopic surface of your muscle cells. Your cells are magnificent, highly efficient little engines. They are designed to burn glucose to give you the energy you need to walk your dog, tend to your garden, and simply enjoy your day. However, glucose cannot just wander into a cell on its own. It needs permission. The surface of every muscle cell is equipped with tiny receptors, which act very much like specialized locks on a door. Insulin, the hormone produced by your pancreas, is the precise biological key designed to open those locks. Under ideal conditions, insulin turns the lock, the cellular door opens, glucose flows inside, and you feel energized and vibrant. But when we consume a steady stream of artificial sweeteners, whether it is diet, soda at lunch, or zero-sugar water enhancers in the evening, we are keeping our insulin levels artificially elevated throughout the day, as we discussed in our last segment. Your cells are incredibly smart. If they are constantly being exposed to insulin, they become overwhelmed. To protect themselves from this constant hormonal knocking, they begin to remove their own locks. They downregulate their receptors. In the medical community, we call this insulin resistance. But in plain, everyday language, it simply means your cells have changed the locks and stopped listening. When your liver releases that emergency sugar, or when you eat a perfectly healthy, complex carbohydrate like a serving of black beans, the natural glucose is left stranded in the hallway. The doors are locked. Because the sugar cannot enter the cells where it belongs, it begins to accumulate in your bloodstream. Over time, elevated blood sugar gently alters the physical nature of your blood. Instead of flowing smoothly and effortlessly, it becomes slightly thicker, more viscous. As your heart pumps this thicker blood through your vascular system, it creates a slow, steady friction against the delicate inner walls of your blood vessels. This gentle but persistent friction explains so much of the physical discomfort you might be experiencing. Your body has thousands of miles of microscopic, hair-thin blood vessels called capillaries. These capillaries are responsible for delivering oxygen to your most sensitive tissues. When thicker blood flows through the tiny vessels in the back of your eyes, it creates wear and tear. This is why it might be taking you a little longer to focus your eyes in the morning, or why reading small print feels more straining than it used to. This same process happens in your lower legs and feet. The nerves in your toes require a constant, unimpeded supply of oxygen-rich blood to function properly. When the tiny vessels feeding those nerves become damaged by elevated blood sugar, the nerves begin to struggle. This is the biological mechanism behind peripheral neuropathy, that tingling, burning sensation, or the feeling that you are walking on thick cotton pads. Your nerves aren't failing. They are simply asking for oxygen. And because the sugar is trapped outside your cells, your cellular engines are running on empty. This is the root cause of the heavy, dragging fatigue that so many individuals over the age of 60 experience. You might have assumed you were just slowing down with age. But in reality, your cells are simply waiting for fuel that is locked right outside their doors. But why are the locks so thoroughly jammed? If we only look at insulin, we are missing a massive piece of the puzzle. To understand the true root of insulin resistance, we have to travel down into your digestive tract and explore one of the most fascinating environments on Earth, the human microbiome. Inside your lower intestine lies a vast, complex ecosystem of trillions of microscopic bacteria. For decades, medical science vastly underestimated the importance of these bacteria. We now know that your microbiome acts as an essential, deeply integrated organ. These bacteria are your quiet protectors. They help manage your immune system, they synthesize essential vitamins, and remarkably, they play a massive role in determining how sensitive your cells are to insulin. Think of your microbiome as a lush, perfectly balanced garden. When you eat fibrous vegetables and complex carbohydrates, you are providing premium fertilizer for the beautiful, protective plants in this garden. However, recent research out of several major universities suggests that artificial sweeteners interact with this garden in a very disruptive way. Because the human body cannot digest synthetic chemicals like sucralose and saccharin, these compounds travel intact through your stomach and into your lower intestine. When they arrive, they encounter your gut bacteria. Evidence shows that these artificial compounds can alter the delicate balance of your microbiome, inadvertently reducing the populations of your most beneficial, protective bacteria. When the healthy bacteria in your gut are diminished, the physical lining of your intestine becomes vulnerable. Your intestinal wall is designed to be a highly selective barrier, allowing nutrients to pass into your blood while keeping waste and toxins securely inside the digestive tract. But without a healthy bacterial population to protect it, this barrier can weaken. Microscopic gaps begin to form between the cells of your intestinal lining. This condition is often referred to as intestinal permeability. When these tiny gaps form, microscopic food particles and bacterial fragments can slip through the intestinal wall and enter your bloodstream. Your immune system is incredibly vigilant. The moment it detects these foreign fragments in your blood, it initiates a quiet, steady immune response to protect you. This immune response creates a state of low-grade, chronic inflammation throughout your body. You won't feel this inflammation as a fever or an acute pain. It is a silent, systemic hum in the background of your biology. And here is why this matters deeply to your morning blood sugar readings. Systemic inflammation directly interferes with insulin signaling. To use our earlier analogy, if insulin is the key and your cellular receptor is the lock, Systemic inflammation acts exactly like a layer of thick rust covering the locking mechanism. Even if your pancreas is producing plenty of insulin, and even if your cells still have some receptors available, the key simply will not turn. The inflammation prevents the biological connection from taking place. I want to introduce you to a patient named Margaret. Margaret was a 69-year-old retired nurse. Because of her medical background, she was incredibly diligent about her health. When her doctor warned her about her rising A1C, she immediately removed all refined sugar from her home. However, she relied heavily on artificially sweetened iced tea and zero-sugar protein bars to get through her busy afternoons volunteering at the local library. Despite her immaculate diet, Margaret came to me exhausted. She was taking her prescribed medications, but her fasting blood sugar was stubbornly resting at 175 every morning. More distressingly, she was experiencing a growing numbness in her right foot that made driving uncomfortable. She felt deeply discouraged, believing her body was simply declining. When I looked at Margaret's daily routine, I didn't see a woman who was failing. I saw a woman whose microbiome was quietly asking for help. I explained to her how the artificial sweeteners in her daily drinks and snacks were likely disrupting her gut bacteria, allowing low-grade inflammation to rust her insulin locks shut. We didn't focus on restriction. Instead, we focused on healing. I asked Margaret to trade her zero-sugar protein bars for a simple handful of walnuts and fresh berries, and to replace her diet iced tea with sparkling mineral water flavored with a squeeze of fresh lime. We took away the disruptive chemicals and gave her gut the quiet space it needed to rebalance. The transformation did not happen overnight, but the human body's capacity for healing is truly remarkable. Over the course of a couple of months, Margaret noticed her afternoon fatigue lifting. She had the energy to enjoy her volunteer work without feeling depleted. Slowly, the tingling in her foot began to recede as her microvascular system experienced less friction, and her fasting blood sugar began a steady, gentle decline, finally stabilizing at a very comfortable 105. A practical step you can take today is to start viewing your digestive tract not just as an engine that processes food, but as a delicate garden that requires gentle care. The next time you reach for a beverage or a snack, simply ask yourself, is this going to nourish the beneficial bacteria in my gut, or is it going to disrupt them? Understanding how inflammation rusts your insulin locks is empowering because it means the process can be reversed. You do not have to live with jammed cellular doors forever. The surprising part is that you already have access to incredibly powerful, entirely natural tools that can actively clean this rust, repair your intestinal lining, and allow your blood sugar to drop naturally and safely. This changes everything once you understand how to use these specific, everyday foods to your advantage. In our third and final segment, I am going to walk you through a simple, 3-step routine. I will show you exactly how to nourish your microbiome, patch the microscopic gaps in your digestive tract, and naturally polish the rust off your insulin receptors so you can reclaim your energy and protect your health for the years ahead. Welcome to the final part of our journey. Over the last 2 segments, we have uncovered a biological truth that brings immense relief to so many people. Your body is not broken, and you have not been failing. We explored how the intense sweetness of artificial additives can confuse your brain, prompting your liver to release emergency sugar into your bloodstream. We then looked deep inside your digestive tract, discovering how these same synthetic ingredients can disrupt your microbiome, leading to a quiet, systemic inflammation that effectively rusts the locks on your cellular doors. Understanding these mechanics is incredibly empowering. When you realize that your high morning blood sugar is not a mysterious failing of your biology, but rather a natural reaction to modern, highly processed environments, everything shifts. You move from a place of frustration into a place of active, informed control. Today, we are going to pivot entirely to the solution. We are going to look at a gentle, evidence-based approach to repairing your gut lining, reducing that systemic inflammation, and naturally polishing the rust off your insulin receptors. I call this approach the microbiome reboot. It does not require extreme fasting, counting every calorie, or purchasing expensive supplements. It simply requires you to use specific, everyday foods as tools to communicate safety and healing to your body. Step 1. The gentle transition. Before we can begin to rebuild and heal the microbiome, we must gently remove the elements that are disrupting it. As we discussed, artificial sweeteners like sucralose, aspartame, and saccharin act as stressors to your beneficial gut bacteria. Your practical action here is to perform a calm, curious audit of your kitchen. Look at the ingredient lists on the back of your diet and sugar-free products. When you find these artificial sweeteners, I encourage you to gently transition them out of your daily routine. You do not need to feel deprived. You are simply trading synthetic chemicals for natural, whole food alternatives. If you enjoy a sweet beverage, try naturally infused waters with berries and mint. If you need a snack, reach for a handful of macadamia nuts or a slice of crisp apple with almond butter. By removing the confusing signals of artificial sweetness, you allow your brain to relax, signaling your pancreas and liver that the metabolic emergency is over. Step 2. Nourishing the garden with resistant starch. Once we have removed the disruptors, our next goal is to repair the delicate lining of your digestive tract. We need to close those microscopic gaps and soothe the inflammation. To do this, we are going to utilize one of the most fascinating biological loopholes in human nutrition, a specific type of fiber called resistant starch. When you eat standard carbohydrates, like a slice of white bread, your stomach acid and digestive enzymes quickly break them down into glucose, which spikes your blood sugar. Resistant starch is entirely different. Just as its name implies, it literally resists digestion. It passes completely intact through your stomach and small intestine, traveling all the way down into your colon. Once it arrives in the colon, it serves a brilliant purpose. It acts as a premium, highly specialized fertilizer for your beneficial gut bacteria. Research published in prominent gastroenterology journals indicates that when your good bacteria consume and ferment resistant starch, they produce a remarkable short-chain fatty acid called butyrate. Think of butyrate as a soothing, healing balm for your intestines. It provides direct energy to the cells lining your gut wall, allowing them to repair and regenerate. It gently seals the microscopic gaps, restoring the integrity of your intestinal barrier. As your gut lining heals, the leakage of toxins into your bloodstream stops. Consequently, your immune system stands down, and the fire of systemic inflammation is quietly extinguished. How do you incorporate resistant starch into your life? It is remarkably simple. One of the best natural sources is a green, unripe banana. You can slice a small portion of a green banana into a morning smoothie. Because it is unripe, it contains very little sugar and high amounts of resistant starch. Alternatively, you can use the cooling method. If you take a standard white potato or a serving of rice, cook it thoroughly, and then place it in the refrigerator overnight. A beautiful chemical change occurs. The cooling process physically alters the structure of the starches, converting them into resistant starch. Enjoying a small portion of a cold potato salad with olive oil at lunch is a wonderful way to deliver butyrate directly to your microbiome without spiking your blood sugar. Step 3. Polishing the cellular locks. Now that your gut is healing and the underlying inflammation is subsiding, we have one final, vital step. We need to clear away the residual rust from your insulin receptors so your muscle cells can finally open their doors and pull the circulating sugar out of your blood. To accomplish this, we turn to some of the most protective compounds found in nature, polyphenols. Polyphenols are potent, naturally occurring antioxidants found in the skins, seeds, and oils of certain plants. Extensive research in metabolic health shows that polyphenols have a remarkable ability to neutralize oxidative stress and reduce cellular inflammation. In simple terms, they act like a gentle, microscopic polish, cleaning the locking mechanisms on your cells and restoring your natural insulin sensitivity. To implement this, I recommend a simple daily practice that you can do right in your kitchen. About 15 to 20 minutes before your largest meal of the day, create a simple dressing. Take 1 tablespoon of high-quality, organic extra virgin olive oil, which is incredibly rich in a powerful polyphenol called oleuropein. Mix it with exactly 1 teaspoon of raw, unfiltered apple cider vinegar. You can drizzle this over a small side salad or simply take it directly from a spoon. The science behind this combination is elegant. The acetic acid in the apple cider vinegar gently slows down the rate at which your stomach empties, ensuring that the meal you are about to eat does not cause a rapid blood sugar spike. Simultaneously, the rich polyphenols in the olive oil enter your bloodstream, actively polishing your insulin receptors. By the time the natural glucose from your meal enters your blood, your freshly cleaned, highly sensitive cells are ready and willing to open their doors. The sugar is swept out of your blood and into your cells, providing you with steady, vibrant energy. I want to share the story of a gentleman named Robert. Robert was 71 years old, a retired architect who approached his health with the same meticulous precision he used in his career. Yet, despite following a strict, sugar-free diet, his fasting numbers were hovering around 185, and the growing neuropathy in his feet was making his daily walks incredibly painful. He felt defeated, believing his body was simply giving out. When Robert came to my clinic, we didn't add more restrictions. We simply shifted his strategy. Robert agreed to clear his pantry of diet sodas and artificially sweetened snacks. He started incorporating a small amount of cooled, resistant starch into his lunches, and he faithfully took his olive oil and vinegar blend before dinner. There were no overnight miracles, just the steady, beautiful process of human biology healing itself. Within a few short weeks, Robert noticed a profound shift. His afternoon fatigue, which had plagued him for years, began to lift. Because his cells were finally receiving fuel, he had the energy to enjoy his evenings again. The painful tingling in his feet softened as his microvascular system experienced less friction and better blood flow. Most importantly, the anxiety he felt every morning disappeared. When Robert checked his fasting blood sugar a month later, his monitor displayed a calm, stable 108. He hadn't fought his body or starved himself. He simply gave his microbiome the environment it needed to thrive, and his body naturally returned to a state of balance. Tomorrow morning, you have a wonderful opportunity. You can look at your health not as a frustrating battle against a broken machine, but as a collaborative relationship with a highly intelligent biological system. You have the ability to make gentle, informed choices. You can remove the confusing signals, nourish your gut garden with resistant starch, and protect your cells with polyphenols. You have the power to protect your vision, your mobility, and your independence for decades to come. I would love to know who is ready to take this gentle, empowering step with our community. Please go down to the comments section right now and type the word HEAL if you are committing to trying the microbiome reboot this week. Writing it down is a powerful way to make a promise to yourself. I read through these comments, and it is incredibly inspiring to see so many individuals taking active ownership of their health. If you found this conversation helpful, if it brought you some clarity and peace of mind regarding your blood sugar, please hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. We are building a community of thoughtful, resilient individuals who are proving that the golden years can truly be a time of vitality and strength. Please consider sharing this video with a friend or a family member who might be struggling with their own numbers. Sometimes, understanding the why is exactly what someone needs to finally find relief. I am Dr. Andrew Morgan. Thank you for trusting me with your time and your health today. Be kind to your biology, and I look forward to seeing you in our next video.